So yeah, we would go to church when I was younger, like 4 or 5. That's when I can remember. I don't remember anything that happened at 2. So yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6. We were going to a Presbyterian church, and listen, I was there for the cookies. I was there for the cookies and the juice. Actually, I had no choice but to be there because my family was there. But I looked forward to the cookies and the juice as a kid. Sunday school, we would, they'll tell us stories about Jesus, but the cookies and the juice, that was where I wanted to, you know, get to. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. So previously, I introduced my channel and I talked about how I would start off with the story called An Unlikely Story. Now, today's video is going to be a preface episode. So, this is not going to be the very first episode of the story, just a preface of, things that happened before the story and just my life in general. So, I'm going to give a family background. I am the third child to my parent, third and last child to my parents. I have two older brothers, and both my parents are Nigerians. Growing up, my parents, they were, how can I describe it? They were not necessarily saved. But at the same time, we did a lot of religious things. Like we would go to church on Sunday just for the fact that it was Sunday. Like that's what you do on Sundays. It was like tradition. You go to church. But it wasn't about, oh, we must serve the Lord. No, it's like, okay, Sundays, going to church is what you do. And at the same time, my brothers and I were going to Catholic school. So we did a lot of religious things, but my parents were not saved. 98, the year 98, there was a couple who, I don't know, they found my mom somewhere, but they would come to the house and evangelize, and they gave my mom her very first Bible. And anytime they would come, I was I would be like super nosy and just be sitting on a dining table like listening to what they're saying. And a year after, my mom gave her life to Christ, 99. And ever since then, she just was on fire. Like anything that had to do with Jesus, she was there. Like it was like she just wanted to serve the Lord, you know? And in her doing that, she was dragging us too along with that. And even my dad as well. Now, my dad came along later on in life, but at that time, my mom had such a zeal to follow Christ. I know at that time, by 2000, we switched churches. We went to a Nigerian church. And coming to a Nigerian church from a Presbyterian church, it was very different. It was very different. At this Nigerian church, a lot of prayer. Church service was very long, and a lot of laying of hands, people falling down, night vigils. I didn't know what that was before until we started going to this Nigerian church. It was like heavy Jesus concentrated, you know, and and I think that was exactly the space where my mom was, and she was dragging us into it as well. So 2002, 9 years old, my family and I moved to Nigeria. And, I was very sad because all I knew was, life in Jersey. But this was something that my parents wanted for me and my brothers, to learn the Nigerian culture, to get a Nigerian education. And I really am thankful for that whole process. Like, I wouldn't trade it for the world, you know? I thought, coming from a Nigerian church in New Jersey, I knew what it was like. No, Nigerian Christianity is like times two of what happens in the States. Even the Nigerian churches in the US cannot even compare to the Nigerian churches in Nigeria. So it was a lot of prayer, a lot of fasting, a lot services is 5 hours long. It was just so heavy, Jesus concentrated. And my mom would just, especially when it came to me, Like, I don't know what it was at that time, but now I understand. It was like she made sure I was praying. She made sure I was drawing close to God. She would tap me like, you got to pray, you got to pray, you got to attend this service. It was, and I didn't understand it back then, but now I do, you know. So that was like my religious background. Now, the thing with me was coming from Catholic school, coming from a Presbyterian church, Nigerian church, going to Nigerian churches in Nigeria as well. I believed in God. I believed in God. I believed in Jesus. I believed he died on the cross for our sins. I believed in staying away from sin. I believed all of that. But what I noticed was my walk with Christ, growing up as a child, and, being a teenager and all, it was borrowed. Like, I was only doing things my mom was telling me to do. Like, what she does, I would do. What she says, I would do. Like, I did not know Christ for myself, And for me, it was kind of cool. I'm kind of cool and okay for me because I believed, in Christ. So it's like, okay, if she's telling me to do these things, I'm gonna just do it. But yeah, I didn't know Christ for myself. I did not know Christ for myself. Age of 9, moved to Nigeria. 17, I come back. Actually, 2 weeks before my 17th birthday, I come back to the States. And yeah, it's the same thing. Hey, you got to pray. You got to pray. You got to go to church. You got to do all these things. Um, and at this time, coming back to the States, um, I'm not going to a Nigerian church. I go to a church that's predominantly African American, and it's just church is amazing. Church is amazing. And so yeah, I go, but at the same time too, I feel like my walk is borrowed. I'm just doing what my mom wants me to do. I'm just fasting because my mom wants me to fast. So, and to be honest, I am very thankful for my mom. I feel like God used my mom mightily in my life growing up. She was, and still is, um, she has been a godly influence. I look back at all the times where she was pressing me into prayer, pressing me into like getting involved in church. That was God using her, that was God using her to get me into Christ, to get me into, the things of God. So, so yeah, my mom has been a very intricate part in my Christian walk. But yeah, like I said, it was borrowed faith. Not borrowed faith, borrowed walk. And then at the age of 20, I get a job at a group home. Get a job at a group home. Now I work at weekends, on the weekends. And because of that, I couldn't go to church anymore. So I stopped going to church from 2013 up until 2015. And then the year 2014 came. 2014, I graduated from college, and I remember just feeling this sense of not knowing who I was, not knowing who I was, not knowing what was next in life because all I knew was school. Um, I was getting denied a lot of job opportunities in my field, and I remember questioning like, what's my purpose? I remember I pray to God, asking God, what is my purpose? Why did you bring me on this earth? Why did you create me? Like, I want to know. And I would have dreams of me running. I'm just running in dreams, and I don't even know who's chasing me. I'm just running. And I was just feeling this sense of like being lost. Like, who am I? I don't know who I am. And so I would pray to God to say, like, tell me, what's my purpose, what you created me to be, and all of that. Um, at the same time, around this time, like I said, I was not having a lot of job opportunities. The only job I was working at was a group home job that I was working the year before I graduated. But I was looking for a job in my field. I was trying to wonder what I can do with my degree. Um, so eventually I do get a job in 2015. I get a temp position in a corporate company. And we're going to call this company For the sake of the story, we're gonna call this company Paris. Yeah, that's gonna be the name of the company. The name of the company is gonna be Paris. So I was working at Paris, what, May 2015. I was a temp. I was like, you know what? I'ma just stay here till this temp position is up. Apply for a full time position, and I'ma get in, and that's gonna work out fine for me. So that was my whole game plan. But as I was working there, I remember my mom would say, "You're not praying as much. You're not like you used to pray a lot. You're not praying as much anymore. Like you've forgotten God ever since you got this job." And to be honest, she was right. She was like, I felt like I got what I was praying for, what I wanted. So I didn't feel the need to be like constantly in prayer. And at the same time, I would be very tired by the time I get back home. So yeah, she was right. I really was not praying as much. And did I forget about God? Yeah, I did. I'm not gonna lie, I did, because I was like, I got what I want. I got what I wanted. I got what I prayed for. Um, so that happens. Now, towards the end of 2015, November, I get suspended at work because I did not fulfill some of the requirements of like training. So I got suspended. And during that suspension, my mom was like, "Hey, why don't you just go to church? Come to church with us. It's been a while." So I was like, "Okay, cool." So I go to church, like ending of November and December as well. And then after my suspension, my mom tells me, "Hey, I know you're going back to work, but I think you should still come to church on Sundays. If you can arrange something with your coworker or whatever, you should still come to church on Sundays." I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna do that." And so, yeah, so I just started going back to church again, and that's what happened. Forward to January 2016, I get terminated. And that is what the story is going to start from. I am going to start the first episode from my job termination. Next episode, I am going to talk about what happened that day and what actually led to the termination and just my life ever since January 2016. Now, I do want to talk about this, my views on relationships, because relationships is going to play a big role in this story. Um, my views on relationships. So, as of January 2016, I was 22 years old. I was 22 years old, single. I didn't have anybody in my life at the time. And that was really by choice, too. I was a type of person where by the age of 15, I knew what I wanted. Well, I knew I had an idea of what I wanted. And then years after that, 18, 19, 20, I was growing into knowing what I want in marriage. Yeah, in marriage. So at the age of 15, I remember telling myself, I want to get married and pregnant with my first child at 25. So I have 10 years to look for a man. I remember telling myself that. Oh my goodness. Oh, child. I remember telling myself that. But by the age of 19, 20, I knew exactly what I wanted. I did not want someone who, um, I did not want someone who had children. That was something that I was big on because I knew I wasn't going to bring children into the relationship. So whoever I'm going to be with, I don't want you to bring children either. Um, I wanted someone who was also a Christian, because I'm a Christian as well. I wanted someone who was morally upright. Yeah, I wanted someone who was morally upright. I didn't want someone who drinks, smokes, goes clubbing, gets high. I just didn't want anyone who was into that. That was my thing. Now, at this time, it's like, okay, this is my stance on marriage. But I was not dating, and that was by choice. And the reason why I was not dating by choice was because of fear. I had the fear that, what if I get into a relationship and 2 to 3 years we break up? That was my fear. I did not want to go through that. I wanted to date someone, and that relationship end in marriage. That was my stance. And also the idea of dating someone for 2 to 3 years, I would feel like a failure. And I didn't want to feel that way. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to date at the time. A second reason why was I was trying to avoid heartbreak. Yeah. I know who I am. I can give up my left arm to save a person. I can, once I'm in love with you, once I've made the decision to love you, there's nothing I wouldn't do. So to be with someone who has like wrong intentions for me, doesn't really love me, but I love them, and for them to play me, listen, I'm checking into Heartbreak Hotel. I would not, it will be hard for me to recover. I don't want to go through heartbreak. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stay single until God tells me, what, he's the one. So that was my stand. I said I'm staying single until God tells me he's over there. So that was my thing. So fear of failing in a relationship, trying to avoid heartbreak, and to be honest, I don't have the energy to get to know a bunch of people. Like, I'm sorry. I don't want to date a person for a month and it's not going anywhere. We break up, see someone else, another. I don't have time for that. I don't. I just, to be honest, my space is I just want to meet my husband and that's it. That, like, I just want to meet my husband and that's it. So yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time to be dating. I don't have time. So that was my stance. Now there was something else that I had going on at this time. I won't mention it on this episode because I think it's best I talk about it later on when it makes sense for me to talk about it. So that was my whole, stance on relationship. I talked about my faith, my religious background, talked about my family, I talked about my work. So next episode will be the very first episode of An Unlikely Story. I'm going to start off from the day I got terminated from Paris. That was January 4th, 2016. And then we just go from there. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, and also don't forget to hit the notification bell too. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you in my next video.